We are 2 weeks away from what has been the traditional National Signing Day, the first Wednesday of February. That is now been backed up to December in regards to most of the signees coming in to the major programs, about 75 to 85% of the signees during December. But we're still looking at some top prospects and some really key finds, especially the situation that I don't want to pin it on one guy, but I will. Mark Richt put you in a sense, with all the defections before the signing, the defections of commitments moving away, and what Manny Diaz is trying to catch up to, it being the Miami standard. So, Cam, who are those guys out there that you're really eyeing at this point?
Yeah, there's guys at every position. And I mean, it's through the course of the recruiting class, I usually do like a monthly class breakdown, but there's just been so much going on with, obviously a coaching change and all these transfers and things like that. So I'm not going to get to one for January, I don't think. Class breakdown it is. So let this fill in for that. There are players at pretty much every position that Miami's chasing after. I'm going to try to talk fast. There's a quarterback, Peyton Matocha from Houston. St. Thomas Aquinas, the one in Houston, not the one in Fort Lauderdale. But he's like 6'4", 204, had like 4,500, 4,800 yards of total offense this year, something like that. Dan Enos had seen Matocha from his sophomore year, I want to say, back when Enos was at Arkansas, and Matocha went to go camp there. Long story short, Enos comes to Miami. Obviously, Miami's still looking for more quarterbacks, even with getting Tate Martell on the team. And so they offer Matocha. He's coming in for a visit this week. We'll see what happens. I mean, moves could be made quickly there. So we'll see. Obviously, there's Lance Legendre, however you want to say it, from New Orleans. He's a four-star dual threat kid from Warren Easton High School, I want to say, I think. Anyway, he's going to visit in a couple of weeks. He's a quarterback as well. And on the first play of his highlight reel, he throws the ball, no kidding, 73 yards in the air. Like during a game, he's running around. Yeah, I saw Mark's head. He goes, what? No, seriously. First play, this kid has a cannon for an arm. But either one of those guys could be the high school quarterback that Miami takes. Obviously, I've been saying for a long time that the quarterback position in this recruiting class is quite substandard. So even with getting one of those guys, it would be a developmental pick or addition to the team. But, you got to have a quarterback every year. So, maybe this is a year where you take a project and then next year you try to get a superstar. Running back, the number one target is Mark Anthony Richards. That is Armon Richards' little brother from Wellington, Florida. He's going to take a visit this week. He's, he could be dynamic as a safety / linebacker, that striker role on defense. I think he's a first-round draft pick, or a high draft pick, at least we'll call it, on the defensive side of the ball. That's where I prefer him, but he wants to play offense, and people have been recruiting him to play offense. And Eric Hickson, Miami's new running backs coach, was recruiting Richards to be a running back when he was at Akron even 3 years ago. So the relationship there of the running backs coach recruiting this multi-talented player to be a running back exclusively exists. So we'll see what happens. Wide receiver, TJ Jones from Lake City, Columbia in Florida. He's like a 3-star, 4-star kind of kid, borderline, but he's very fast and athletic. And maybe he's a guy who gets a look. George Pickens is from Hoover, Alabama. He's committed to Auburn, and Miami's pushing to get him in on a visit. Haven't seen or heard anything about an offensive lineman, so hopefully that changes. On the defensive line, Jared Harrison Hunt from Christ the King in New York is a guy that Miami's after. Jadarian Boykin is a defensive end who Miami brought in last weekend, but they seem to be looking at the other names on the board of potentially in front of Boykin. Speaking of those names on the board, Chris Bogle from Cardinal Gibbons, again, around the corner from my house. Miami's trying to push to get him to come for another visit, even though he's committed to Alabama. Tennessee is pushing for Bogle as well to see if they can get him to flip. But Alabama has hired the defensive line coach from Florida, who was Bogle's primary contact with the Gators when he was there, and the defensive coordinator, I want to say, who was from Tennessee, and he was the lead recruiter for Bogle at Tennessee. So you're bringing in two guys who Bogle already has a connection with to maybe keep him committed to Alabama. In the transfer portal, Jaylen Phillips, excuse me, was the #1 overall recruit 2 years ago, 2017, 6'5", 230-pound defensive end. Went to UCLA, had 2 injury-plagued seasons. He retired, but then is looking like maybe he wants to get back in playing football. And if you want to play football and you're the #1 player in America and you're interested in maybe being a Cali Kane and coming over from the West Coast over here to Coral Gables, just like those Nevada boys, hey, come on down. So we'll see about that. Trevon Hill was dismissed from Virginia Tech, which is having like their whole team transferring. It's crazy. Anyway, he's like a starting level defensive end, and he is interested in Miami, but Miami is going to slow play that one because Hill's not going to graduate till May anyway. So a decision does not need to be made now. At linebacker, there's Eugene Asante from Virginia, and there's Octavius Brothers from Rockledge, Florida. Miami wants one of those guys in this class. The reports are that Brothers is the more likely of those two. You have Christian Williams, who's committed to Alabama as a cornerback from Daphne, Alabama, but had a strong visit last weekend. And Miami seems to be trying to make a move. But again, you're recruiting against Alabama, so I make no declarations about the future for Christian Williams. He's going to visit like Texas A&M and LSU these next 2 weeks, and he's still committed to Alabama before, obviously signing day. He did not sign early. Martin Emerson from Pine Forest up in Niceville or something like that, up in the Panhandle of Florida. He's committed to Mississippi State, but he's going to come back down for a second official visit, again, which is allowed through the rules. If a coaching change happens, that you can take another visit to your school or to any school. So he's going to come back down. Miami's pushing for him. Kyer Elam from North Palm Beach, the Benjamin School, but he's Matt Elam's cousin who went to Florida. So obviously that's probably where he's going to end up. And there may be a couple of other names, but I think I hit every position group on the way down. What's next?
Whoo, that was packed in. So if you didn't catch that,
right.
You got to rewind and when it posts, because Cam went boom, 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 position by position, and he didn't break stride. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Jaylen Phillips, I was going to bring up Jaylen Phillips as a number of people did in the live chat, so you cover the ground there. This kid is a freshman, only played 6 games. He had 7.5 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks in 6 games, a half a season at UCLA, and then got hit with some injuries and so forth, and looks like he is ready to roll somewhere, going to go somewhere from UCLA.